Chapter 4. Intentional Resilience. I intend to cultivate resilience to stress. According to the American Psychological Association, APA, resilience is the process and outcome of successfully adapting to difficult or challenging life experiences, especially through mental, emotional, and behavioral flexibility and adjustment to external and internal demands. To me, the word resilience brings to mind a bot bag, an inflatable toy, often decorated with the image of a clown, that springs back to an upright position after being punched. New me is like a bot bag. Life still knocks me sideways sometimes, but because I have cultivated resilience to stress, I can quickly recover. Intentional resilience involves mastering the skills that enable us to bounce back from the inevitable stresses of life. To learn how to cultivate resilience, let's begin by exploring how to recognize and manage the symptoms of stress. Jalen's story. Jalen lives in a scenic town nestled in the valley of a mountain range. The stream that meanders alongside the main street is peaceful, except in springtime. That's when melting snow from the mountains above transforms the stream into a churning cauldron of muddy water, broken branches, and other debris. Jalen still shudders when he recalls the year that a torrential rainstorm combined with the spring thaw forced the stream to spill over its banks. He was leaving for work one morning when he spotted a wall of water thundering down the street. Somehow he made it back inside and up the stairs before the water surged through his front door. Now every spring, Jalen feels a sense of dread whenever rain is in the forecast. His heart beats faster, and his stomach clenches as he considers what might have happened if he had not made it back to his house in time. The stress response. Jalen reacted quickly to the flash flood thanks to his stress response. The stress response is autonomic, meaning that we cannot consciously control it. Here is a list of how our body changes when the brain detects a threat and switches into fight or flight mode. The bloodstream is flooded with adrenaline, cortisol, cytokines, and pain-inhibiting chemicals. Glucose, insulin, and cholesterol are released to expedite energy supply to the muscles. Our blood pressure and heart rate accelerate. Breathing becomes fast and shallow. The body is on high alert. The primary emotion is fear. Our pupils dilate and our vision tunnels as our eyes lock on the perceived threat. In his rush to escape, Jalen did not need to notice that his grass needed mowing, for example. The ability to hear certain frequencies may be impaired. All our available energy is redirected to muscles in the arms and legs in preparation to fight or flee the threat. The immune and digestive systems are suppressed because the body does not want to expend energy combating viruses or infections, or digesting food until the threat is resolved. Cellular growth and repair is also suppressed. The part of our brain that helps us evaluate options and solve problems goes offline. Instead, the brain surrenders control to our reflex-oriented instinct, which reacts faster than the rational mind. Instinct enables us to hit the brakes when the driver in front of us swerves unexpectedly, yank our hand away from a hot stove, or dash to higher ground in the path of oncoming floodwaters. Our body responds before our brain realizes what is happening. What triggers the stress response for you? A lengthy to-do list and running late to an appointment are stressful for me. Take a moment to list your common stressors in your journal. We will come back to them later. Nature designed the stress response for short-term use. As soon as we escape the threat, our body is supposed to revert to homeostasis, or rest, digest, and heal mode. In homeostasis, the primary chemicals in the blood include dopamine, oxytocin, and growth hormone. Blood chemistry is regulated as needed for sleep, digestion, and healing. Heart rate, blood pressure, and respiration are at the body's typical resting rate. The body feels calm, safe, and open to emotions such as love and compassion. Eyes are relaxed and scanning the environment. Energy is focused on absorption of nutrients from food, elimination of waste, cellular growth and repair, and immune system functions. The brain uses experience, insight, and empathy in the prefrontal cortex for thinking and decision-making. The brain is open to learning and receiving new information. The physical activity of running away or fighting back clears the stress response from our body. You may have seen nature shows where as soon as the antelope outruns the hungry lion, it resumes grazing peacefully as if nothing happened. How much time do you spend in rest, digest, and heal mode? Would you like to spend more time there? One of my clients has a small dog, Daisy, that barks at every little noise. Often, it is hard to tell what sets her off. Perhaps it's neighbors working in their yard, or the wind rustling the leaves in the trees outside the kitchen door. Because my client is elderly and lives alone, an alert dog like Daisy is a good safety measure, as long as she settles once her owner gives the all-clear signal. We want to train our stress response to behave like Daisy. It should switch into fight or flight mode when it senses danger, and then stop barking and return to homeostasis once the situation is resolved. The stress response is both a blessing and a curse. We tend to use the term stress to refer to distress, a form of stress that arises when we feel overwhelmed. But the stress response can also help us focus on a deadline, prepare for a presentation, or improve athletic performance. This beneficial form of stress, known as eustress, is often associated with personal growth. We would not want to suppress our stress response even if we could. After all, the quick reaction triggered by Jalen's distress response saved his life, while eustress motivates us to excellence in situations we find challenging yet rewarding. Chronic stress. One stressor can lead to another. For example, imagine that you oversleep one morning. When you finally wake up, your first surge of adrenaline launches you out of bed in a mad dash to get ready. In full-on fight or flight mode, you deviate from your typical morning routine, triggering additional releases of adrenaline every time you have to backtrack because you forgot something. As you rush to the car, you realize that the lunch you packed the night before is still on the kitchen counter. So you experience another stress influx as you run back inside to retrieve it. And when you finally arrive at work, you realize that your shoes don't match. Say hello to another dose of stress chemicals every time you suspect someone is looking at your feet. Unfortunately, when it comes to most modern-day stressors, neither fighting nor fleeing are viable options. We can't physically wrestle an overflowing inbox or run away from mismatched shoes. As a result, residual stress chemicals are still circulating in our bloodstream when the next stressor hits. Think of a leaf kept aloft by an autumn wind. Every time it drifts down toward the ground, another gust tosses it high up into the air again. Like that leaf, chronic stress occurs when our body never fully transitions back to homeostasis before the stress response reactivates. Over time, chronic stress, also known as anxiety, takes a toll on our mental, emotional, and physical well-being. With the nervous system constantly on alert, it is hard to concentrate and make informed decisions. Restful sleep is elusive. Joints and muscles ache from being tensed for action. Because the immune system is receiving fewer resources, we are more susceptible to catching viruses, and wounds take longer to heal. Digestion doesn't work smoothly, leading to gastrointestinal stress and cravings. The symptoms of chronic stress are listed in the Chronic Anxiety Self-Assessment in the companion document. Take the assessment now, and then retake it again after each chapter. The companion document includes a self-assessment tracker to compare your scores as you progress through the book. False alarm. Although the human body is constantly evolving, the stress response is still adjusting to modern society. Violence overseas, a vicious comment on social media, or slow-moving traffic can activate the stress response even though there is no threat to our physical safety. Even our thoughts, recalling memories from the past, like an argument with your partner, or worries about the future, like paying your credit card bill on time, can trigger the stress response. Our survival instinct reacts the same way to past memories, future worries, or an actual emergency unfolding in the present. That is why Jalen's body experiences the symptoms of fight or flight when he hears that rain is in the forecast. His body is preparing for action, even though he is in no immediate danger. Refer to your list of common stressors. How many are false alarms? In other words, how many are not life-threatening? Although an overwhelming to-do list and showing up late to an appointment feel stressful for me, they aren't a matter of life and death. Sarah's story. Sarah was 9 years old when the night terror started. She was home from school due to contracting the COVID-19 virus from a classmate. It was early in the pandemic. There was still a lot of uncertainty regarding the severity of the virus. Both Sarah and her parents were understandably worried, although her symptoms were mild. As darkness descended and bedtime approached, Sarah's worry escalated into despair. She irrationally feared that if she went to sleep, she might not wake up. Although her parents tried to reassure her, Sarah was inconsolable, leading to a mostly sleepless night for everyone in the family. In the morning, Sarah's mom called the pediatrician, who recommended that Sarah, quote, think positive thoughts. That seemed to help during daylight hours, but Sarah's fear returned again as bedtime approached. As her parents soon discovered, a terrified child cannot will herself into optimism any more than stressed-out old me could will myself into calmness. After a second sleepless night, Sarah's mom contacted me. Sarah's night terrors were the result of a stress response in overdrive. In Healing Touch, we have techniques to remove unwanted energy from our client's biofield, much the way that a lint brush removes cat fur from my dressy black pants. My goal as an energy healer was twofold. First, restore Sarah's system to homeostasis. And second, teach her how to manage her stress response going forward. After setting up my table in their living room, I invited Sarah to lie down. She chose to sit upright instead, which was an indication that she was too agitated to relax. In my initial assessment, I detected buzzy energy around her head. To clear Sarah's mind of racing thoughts, I positioned my hands on either side of her head with the intention of sending white light energy between my palms, just as you learned in the focuser technique. As Sarah relaxed, she laid down on the table and her chattiness quieted. Next, I opened the energy centers in the sole of each foot before raking stressful energy down the length of her body and out through her feet. Finally, I taught Sarah to use the intentional breathing technique to soothe herself when the anxiety returned. After our first energy healing session, Sarah slept through the night. After a few more sessions, Sarah told me, "Thank you, but I can manage on my own now." She was right. That was over 3 years ago, and the night terrors have not returned. Intentional breathing. Intentional breathing is easy to master and can be practiced anywhere, anytime, whether driving a vehicle, sitting in a meeting at work, or lying sleepless in bed staring at the ceiling. As Sarah demonstrated, it is so easy a child can do it. As we learned earlier, one symptom of the stress response is rapid and shallow breathing as the body prepares to fight back or run away. Long, slow, intentional breathing is perhaps the most powerful method to counteract the stress response, as it reassures the brain that it can stop ringing the alarm bells. Imagine your brain thinking, if our breathing is relaxed, then everything must be okay now. Like my client's dog Daisy, our system reverts to rest, digest, and heal mode. 3 aspects of intentional breathing include moving the diaphragm, holding the breath, and an exhale that is longer than the inhale. The diaphragm is a thin, dome-shaped muscle in the torso. Attached to the ribs in the front and the vertebrae in the back, it stretches across the abdominal cavity, separating the heart and lungs from the intestines. When we inhale, the diaphragm should bow downward, massaging the digestive organs. When we exhale, the diaphragm rounds upward, pressing against the lungs to help expel carbon dioxide. This is called diaphragmatic or belly breathing, because when we inhale fully, the downward movement of the diaphragm causes the belly to distend slightly outward. If you pay attention to how other people breathe, you will see that many people breathe so shallowly that their bellies do not expand when they inhale. But with a little practice, you will not be one of those people. Follow the steps below or practice along with me using the video in the companion document. Step 1. Safety first. Sit or lie down in a comfortable position. If you are a shallow breather, the extra oxygen might make you feel a little lightheaded. Next, lightly rest one hand over your navel and the other hand in the center of your chest near your heart. Mentally counting to 4, take a slow, deep breath. Inhaling through your nose, feeling your belly rise as your diaphragm expands. When you can't breathe in any more air, pause for 7 seconds with your lungs filled to capacity. Mentally counting to 8, exhale through your nose as slowly as you can. Keep exhaling until your belly shrinks back toward your spine and your diaphragm rises, pushing all the stale air out of your lungs. Again. Slowly inhale as deeply as you can. Pause. Then exhale slowly. Continue to breathe intentionally until you feel calm. Very good. In the beginning, it may be challenging to count your breaths. The companion document includes a link to a guided breathing practice that may be helpful while you are learning. Just do your best and trust that it will get easier with practice. Not only is intentional breathing an excellent technique to restore homeostasis after a stress response, but a regular daily practice of intentional breathing also builds resilience to stress. Over time, you can recover from stress more quickly. Best of all, you will find that annoyances are less upsetting because you aren't allowing stress response chemicals to accumulate in your system. Urgency addiction. Early in my career, I worked on a help desk. My days were a constant stream of technical problems. By the time I resolved the first issue of the day, there were already 3 more people waiting for me to fix their problems. I felt a tremendous sense of obligation to respond quickly so people could get back to work. I often deprived myself of lunch and bathroom breaks so I could help as many people as possible. Kicking into high gear, revving on all cylinders, solving one issue after another felt deeply rewarding. A rush of adrenaline can be exhilarating. Recall that I used to start my day with self-imposed stress because being steeped in urgency felt normal. Swirling in a cyclone of busyness helped me feel productive. But there's a distinction between urgent tasks and important tasks. By prioritizing urgent activities, I ignored important activities like spending time with family and friends. Instead of taking time to rejuvenate, I would immerse myself in tackling tight deadlines at work. Seething with impatience, I would finish people's sentences if they took too long to express themselves. I deceived myself into thinking that a steady infusion of stress hormones was beneficial, even though it was ruining my health. Our bodies can become so accustomed to the rush of stress hormones that we seek out opportunities to experience it. People bungee jump off bridges, skydive out of airplanes, or crowd into theaters to watch horror movies. Urgency addicts are always in search of a crisis to resolve. My old manager, Jill, regularly stirred up trouble at work. She would exaggerate a simple misunderstanding between 2 coworkers into a complicated drama involving everyone on the team. Then Jill would swoop in like a superhero, extinguishing the fire that she herself had ignited before running to tell her boss how she had saved the day. As annoying as her behavior was, I can understand why she did it. Jill would become bored with her day-to-day responsibilities. She craved excitement. Tackling an urgent issue gave Jill such a sense of satisfaction that she couldn't resist the urge to create a crisis to resolve. If you think you might be addicted to urgency, here are some things to consider. Do you constantly rush from one thing to another? Do you have notifications turned on for email and social media posts? Are you constantly checking your phone? Do you equate checking a lot of items off your to-do list with having a meaningful day? Do you prioritize a crisis at work over spending time with family? Do you find it hard to spend a day relaxing? Do you often make mistakes in your rush to respond immediately? Do you rush through each task in your eagerness to tackle the next one? Do you feel bored when there's no crisis to solve? Do you exaggerate the urgency of an issue so you feel more satisfaction when you resolve it? If you answered yes to many of the questions above, your body may have become addicted to the rush of adrenaline. Breaking the craving for urgency requires intentional introspection, but it can be done. For me, I eventually realized that my need to be productive and solve problems filled a hole in my self-esteem by giving me a sense of purpose. Spend time with your journal exploring the source of your urgency addiction. Unfortunately, urgency addiction is not harmless. Spending too much time in stress response mode denies our body adequate time to rest, digest, and heal. As we try to balance expectations between home and work, we need to ask ourselves whether we are allowing self-imposed urgency to compound our stress level. Our stress level affects the stress levels of people around us. Jill's urgency addiction affected not only her own health, but also that of the colleagues unfortunate enough to be swept up in her theatrics. We can do the opposite and lower the stress levels of other people by radiating our own calmness as well. As you build resilience by practicing intentional breathing, people in your vicinity will absorb your peacefulness. The gamut point technique. Do you know someone like Jill who radiates so much nervous energy that you feel stressed just being around them? Here's a subtle technique you can use whenever you sense your nervous system sliding into fight or flight mode. Follow the instructions below, or check out the video in the companion document on my website. Begin by practicing a few rounds of intentional breathing. Locate the gamut point by placing the tip of your index finger between the base of the ring and pinky fingers. Then slide your index finger along the back of your hand until you detect the point where the bones of those two fingers meet in a V shape. Press, rub, or tap the gamut point with your index finger using firm yet gentle pressure. Continue holding the gamut point and breathing until calm spreads throughout your body. It doesn't matter which hand you hold. You can switch hands at any time. The beauty of this technique is that no one knows what you are doing. Our two brains. An impressive brick mansion sits atop the summit of a gently rolling hill near the entrance to my neighborhood. A much smaller house used to grace the top of the hill. When the current owners bought it, they built their mansion around the tiny structure instead of tearing it down and building from scratch. The analogy of my neighbor's mansion is helpful for understanding the basic anatomy of the human brain. Neuroscience is a complex topic, and our knowledge of the brain continues to evolve. Researchers are still debating the divisions between various structures and functions. Instead of exploring anatomical terms that are still evolving, let's consider our brain as an old small house that someone built a mansion around. The original portion of our brain sits at the top of the spinal column. Built for survival, this reflex-oriented brain mostly reacts without thinking. Sense a threat, move away. Sense a pleasure, move toward it. Sense food, eat it. It's the part of our brain that instinctively yanks our hand back from a hot stove without thinking. The doctor taps your knee with a rubber mallet and your leg jerks, hence the phrase, knee-jerk reaction. As human skulls evolved, our expanding foreheads created space for our brains to develop physically and functionally. Neural connections in the newer section integrate with the primitive portion, much as electrical wiring in my neighbor's mansion runs seamlessly through the original walls. The rational portion of our brain residing behind our forehead performs executive functions, giving us the ability to control impulses, evaluate options, and solve complex problems. It enables us to feel empathy for others and allows for metacognition, the ability to think about our thinking. Scientists estimate that the rational portion of our brain doesn't fully mature until sometime between the ages of 20 and 30 years old. So there may be a biological reason when a teenager doesn't anticipate the consequences of their actions. When we feel safe, our rational brain dominates. When the stress response is triggered, reflex mode takes the steering wheel as executive functioning slips into the passenger seat. The rational brain lacks the processing speed of the original model. From a survival perspective, we don't need to waste time rationalizing the pros and cons of running when we are in the path of oncoming floodwaters. Our life depends on an immediate reaction. Scammers try to trick us into reacting from our reflex brain. For example, we've all gotten one of those emails that appears to have been sent from Amazon, indicating that our credit card is about to be charged $3,000. Click the link below to cancel the order, it says. Since our reflex brain responds faster than our rational brain processes, the scammers are hoping we click the link before our rational brain questions the legitimacy of the email. For the past several years, we have collectively experienced repeated stressors. First, there was uncertainty about how to protect ourselves from COVID-19. As pandemic fears eased, there were concerns about the economy. Shuttered factories meant supplies were not keeping pace with demand, leading to rising prices. Schools attempted to pivot to online learning, but the results were less than stellar. Isolated at home, we lost touch with our social support networks. Even though the pandemic is in our rearview mirror, we have fresh stressors. Prices remain high. When classrooms reopened, the learning loss became apparent. Social groups we belonged to before the pandemic may not have resumed meeting. Across the globe, People are experiencing devastating losses from major storms, wildfires, droughts, and violence. As these stressors mount, our survival-oriented reflex brain revs into overdrive. Many people report feeling worried, overwhelmed, or angry most of the time. As a result, they are more likely to knee-jerk react than compassionately respond. To restore a sense of safety and predictability, they seek to control circumstances and other people. Although differences of opinion are nothing new, people who are not part of our tribe seem more threatening when we don't feel safe. People have reacted with violence when a stranger drives up their driveway or knocks on their door. Despite the triggering news reports, most of us are not in any immediate danger, but our reflex brain doesn't know that. How has your life changed since the pandemic? Is your default stress level higher than it used to be? Cultivating resilience insulates us from the stress-inducing chaos around us. Practiced daily, techniques like the focuser, intentional breathing, and the gamut point technique free us from the confines of our reflex brain, so our rational brain can respond calmly and thoughtfully to life's challenges. I encourage you to practice these techniques every day and teach them to others so we as a society can cultivate resilience to needless worries and fear-mongering. How to cultivate intentional resilience. Intentional resilience is the first intention because reducing your stress prepares you for the other 7 intentions. We are better able to learn, practice, and apply new information when we feel safe, relaxed, and well-rested. Here are some steps you can follow as you work to cultivate intentional resilience. 1. Write this chapter's intention. I intend to cultivate resilience to stress on a piece of paper and tape it to your bathroom mirror. Take a moment every morning to decide how you will practice the intention in the day ahead. At the end of the day, congratulate yourself for taking action to cultivate your personal power. 2. Pick a point in your existing daily routine to practice the intentional breathing technique for 2 minutes at least twice every day. Use the technique practice tracker sheet in the companion document to track your progress. 3. In addition to your daily practice, use the intentional breathing technique to mitigate the stress response whenever it happens. 4. Make note of specific situations, interactions, or times of day when your stress is elevated. Use your journal to explore why that is and identify solutions to remedy the situation. 5. When stress interferes with your ability to concentrate or you feel overwhelmed, use the focuser technique to clear your mind. 6. Consider whether you have an urgency addiction. If you do, use your journal to investigate the cause and identify solutions to remedy the situation. 7. Recognize the symptoms of stress in others. When people lash out, realize that they may be reacting from their original brain and respond compassionately. 8. As you become calmer, practice radiating calm energy to the people around you. 9. Use the gamut point technique for quick stress relief in the moment. 10. Share these stress-relieving techniques with loved ones and friends. 11. Monitor your stress level by asking yourself throughout the day, how would I rate my anxiety right now on a scale of 1 to 5? 12. Retake the chronic anxiety self-assessment. Log your score in the self-assessment tracker to monitor changes in your stress level over time.